So this first one is from Ricky. Ricky is 12 years old. It's his third year of second grade. God bless Ricky. We hope you make it through. Mr. Summers, your LinkedIn profile says you're a tennis pro, but I was playing basketball with my friends at Courts Plus, and I saw you losing to a guy named Isaac. Is he also a pro? My brother says he works at a paint store. It's like, obviously we're sharing this on socials. Ollie won't care that my name on here is David Big D3 Youngs, will he?
No. Ask him. Wait, did you just...
Hey, he's in the pro shop.
No way, you just drove over there real quick?
Yeah, I just came over to Courts. The Wi-Fi is better.
Wow.
That's commitment.
Wow, that is commitment.
Ollie, obviously you're a proud professional. Are you okay if I have my name on here as David Big D3 Youngs and that there's a fucking country club in the background? Is that okay? Like, this will go public? Like, is that okay with you?
Yep, it's good with me.
Is that okay? Like, this will go public? Like, is that okay with you?
All right. Sweet.
I don't know. Is that okay with you? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was really funny. Sorry.
Hey, I just want to protect a man's job, you know?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. See what I brought with, Ollie?
Yeah, let's see it. Oh, yes. Lovely. I love it.
Yeah. I want to get a full list of who is it. Do you still do that?
I do. Yeah. So, you got yours after you graduated high school because, well, I've stopped doing it after high school. I've done it after they graduate college now because I was losing too much money. Which is a good thing. I mean, it means they're doing well and they've, done well at state and stuff like that. But now, yeah, if they go to a local college, I'll wait to give them their gold lesson bag tag when they're graduated college, because it's more about keeping them in the game like through their whole lives.
See, I don't know if I ever reaped the benefits of the gold lesson club member, because I got it after I graduated, after I won Mr. Tennis. I went to Concordia. I didn't take I hit with you obviously quite a bit, but like, I don't know how many privates I took.
Well, I probably billed you for some of those hitting sessions. Just half price. Just your parents would have got the bill.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We welcome you to TWI Interviews. I'm your host, Ike, along with David Big D3 Youngs. We welcome special guest, Oliver Summers. How's it going, Ollie?
Yeah, it's going great, thanks.
Reason why I wanted to interview you, Ollie, I think you offer a very unique perspective on tennis just because you grew up in a different part of the world, and tennis is such a, worldwide sport. And now you're living in Fargo, so kind of developed a relationship with you over the last probably since my early college days, with you being the head tennis pro here at Courts Plus. So I'm super excited to have you on. But I first want to just get started with how'd you get into tennis right away, like when you were younger?
So my parents played, and I honestly don't remember me even starting to play tennis. That they just tell me the stories that they would go along and play, and I would be sitting on the side and I would just be annoying because I'd want to get in there and play as well. So I never remember having to learn how to play tennis, I guess, which is a good and a bad thing.
At what age did you start playing? And you are from London, right? Is there a particular neighborhood that you associate yourself with?
Yeah, so I'm from the London borough of Kingston upon Thames. Closest Premier League club is Fulham, and the specific area inside of Kingston upon Thames is New Malden, and the club I grew up playing at was called the Phoenix Lawn Tennis Club, and they had 3 shale courts, and shale is slightly different to clay in that it's not as high quality, and the fees per year to play at the club were £25, so that's about $40. And it was an outdoor club. You didn't have to pay for court reservations or anything like that. It wasn't indoor, so I mean, we played through the winter, but there's a lot of rain. But clay is probably better if it's raining than a hard court. because you can still use it even if it's a little bit damp. So yeah, so that's the specific area that I grew up in, this specific club, just a 3-court shale clay tennis club.
Yeah. Was it busy? Like if you didn't have to like if it was a $40 membership, that's pretty cheap. I feel like that's kind of a steal, no?
Yeah, no, it was not busy. And here's why, because like in London, I don't know if this is like the exact amount, but there's about 25 or like, yeah, I think 2,500 clubs that are in London. And like, so if like just like a 2-court facility, they'll like call it a club and you'll get like a tennis club status. But it's the best way to play because public courts kind of fall into disrepair.
Yeah, so you mentioned that, Ollie. And growing up, obviously, in the United States, as Isaac and I did, we played on hardcore, concrete, asphalt, tomato, tomato. Maybe not tomato, tomato for repair purposes, but you grew up in an environment where there were multiple surfaces. You probably weren't playing at the All England Club at that young age, but you grew up on shale. I'm sure there were hard courts. What's the difference as far as, not necessarily the court differences? People can look that up on Wikipedia if they'd like, but just growing up in an environment where there are different surfaces that are available to the public.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably the majority of the courts were still hard court. And then grass courts were pretty hard to get onto. Like those were the very expensive clubs. And typically they're very aloof about letting people go on their grass courts. Like you have to be an adult or you can only play at certain times. But I always thought it was cool because like I used to do this competition that was called like the Surrey Postal Competition, where you would get your opponent's name and address and phone number in the mail. And so like you would have to like reach out to them and you could play your home venue. So then for me, that was always a big advantage because I played on the shale courts, which was like a little bit more slippery than a clay court, like lower quality. So I always had a big home court advantage. And I played for my club. We would play our home matches on clay. We would go to those other clubs, play on their surface. So there was definitely more of like a home and away feel and like definitely more variety. So that was always fun. And sometimes you never knew what you were going to get when you're going to go to a certain club because a lot of clubs have multiple surfaces and the home venue would pick what surface you'd play on. So it's whatever they thought they would do best on. So that was always cool.
The proletariat were playing on the grass courts. The laborers were playing on the hard courts. You're playing on shale. You're saying you were kind of a middle-class guy growing up.
Well, this one, I mean, £25 for the year. I mean, like anyone could afford that. So I was definitely on like the dirt courts. There were some clubs that had like new, resurfaced hard courts. They were the more expensive ones. I was on the working class ones. In fact, the club doesn't even exist anymore. It was the Phoenix Lawn Tennis Club, and it got sold for housing development. So it's not even there anymore.
Dang. Yeah, but the club system over in Europe, but in England specifically, is kind of like a different thing than that we have in the US. In the US, you have, middle school tennis, high school tennis. You kind of work your way up from there. Over there, it's not really like that. It's more so club based, right?
Right. Yeah. You have like so many different levels. So you have basically A to Z or A to Z for you guys. And then like you start off, let's say if you're a new club and you haven't played, you have to start off in the bottom one. So you'd start off in Z. And then if you win that, you come to the top of that, you could bump up 2 places and then you'd go into X. And then, yeah, it's just club versus club. And each club has normally like a first team, a second team, a third team, a fourth team. And in some of the bigger clubs, like the first teams, that's where you'll actually get some people who are trying to go pro play on those first teams. And they're playing like in the A division, in the A League. But it's definitely very unique, and it means a lot more to play for your club than it does for your school.
Yeah. Were you a pretty high level club player?
I think I got to like B or C. My club, like the Phoenix Lawn Tennis Club, the highest we ever got was I think B. And then we ran into some pretty tough opposition at that point. But yeah, it was pretty fun.
So I was just going to say, like, at that young age, you're playing tennis. Sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you fall in love with the game. You're begging to play it with your folks and whatnot. Was there ever at that young age that concept that in your mind of like, I want to play college tennis, whether that be in the United States, obviously, as I'm sure we'll discuss, you played at Portsmouth. When did that pop into the picture?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never thought about playing college tennis the way we think of college tennis, like in the States. I mean, I guess when I was like younger, 11, 12, 13, I was thinking I want to go pro. And then when I was about 14 or 15, I got selected to this academy, and it was like an indoor tennis center, and they gave you free coaching, you got free private lessons. So at that point, I had some people that were like basically pushing me, saying, "Hey, you could do really well. You could do better than just like club level." But also at that same age, 14, 15, you start getting interested in other things. So I didn't throw my heart and soul into tennis at that point. And at that point, I realized, hey, this is really enjoyable, but not to the point that that's the only thing I want to do in my life.
Yeah, what were some of those other things at ages 14 and 15 per se that you and other young Brits may have been interested in?
Yeah, things that to me, going to an all-boys school, were unattainable. So just get interested in girls. So not that I ever had any success at that age, but that became a big interest and a big driving force in my ambitions in life.
Wow, that's an incredibly PG answer. Kudos to you.
So you went to Portsmouth, and then how did you end up going to eventually Fargo, right? Like that's where you first landed in the US?
Yeah. So I went to University of Portsmouth. And I was still playing for my club at the time, so I'd go back to London and play the weekends for the club. And then I started playing for the university. And again, it's not the same as like university teams over here. It was more of like a club tennis where the students ran it. But we still had access to good facilities. And then when I was at Portsmouth, that's when I met a girl who was on an exchange program from Minnesota State University Moorhead, or Moorhead State at the time. And she was staying in the same floor as I was. And me being someone who was like freshly introduced to women and suddenly having abundance of access to them, then that was all very exciting. And after a few months, got the courage to ask her out. And then by the end of that year, then we were traveling around Europe together, and I was proposing on top of the Eiffel Tower. And then the rest is history.
In those early days with Angie, what was her take on you, do you think, initially? She's meeting this young chap who went to Tiffin Boys School, as you mentioned, in an all-male institute.
Yeah.
What do you think that she thought of you initially?
So when I was first started chatting with her, I was actually dating another girl. And the only time she would see me was when I was completely wasted, just completely like, drunk in the evenings. So she thought I was a raging alcoholic. She did not believe that I played tennis. Probably didn't want to have much to do with me, but I kind of wore her down. And then the moment that she said that she would go out with me, then I dumped the other girl that I was going out with, and then I had my top pick.
It's a Brad and Angelina story if I've ever heard one.
Right.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, it's funny because I told her that I played tennis and she just didn't believe me. She didn't believe that I was athletic in any way. She just thought the only thing I cared about was, having a good time. But I will say this though, that she was a straight A student, bound for law school, and it did turn my university experience around to one more of learning instead of yearning. So yes, it was definitely a positive for me.
So you get to Fargo. Do you immediately find the job at Courts Plus, or were you doing something else at the time?
So she was going to law school at UND. So I landed in. Well, actually, she was from Montana. So the first time I ever came over, I went to a small town called Plentywood, Montana. Flew into Regina, Saskatchewan. Picked up there. Was driven down. That was my first ever experience coming to the States. And then then we moved to Grand Forks. And I didn't really know what I was going to do there. So, but they had a country club. So that was the first job I got, was working at the Grand Forks Country Club. And one of the first people I actually called was a guy called Charlie Pocket. and I'm sure you guys probably know Charlie Parker. He's a tennis pro now in Grand Forks. Was a state champion, played for Gus Davis. And I said, hey, I'm just new. Do you want to do some lessons? And he didn't, because he had no idea who I was. And soon after that, the Grand Forks Country Club flooded, and the tennis courts were no more. Luckily, at the same time, I had been in contact with Courts Plus here and spoken to Jerry, and Jerry's like, yeah, come down. We can have you teach a few times a week. And the story with that is quite interesting because I didn't have a vehicle at the time, but I thought, well, I could just get the train, or I could just get a bus. Turns out the train system isn't quite as abundant as it is in the UK. So I ended up having to get a Greyhound in the middle of the day from Grand Forks to Fargo, and then I would walk from downtown Fargo to Courts Plus, and I would teach in the evening, and then I would get a ride back to the Greyhound station from the guy I was working with, Ryan Myrie at the time, and then I would go back to Grand Forks on the bus. So all in all, I did like probably a 3-hour, coach trip to work for 2 hours here. But that's what got me in the door.
Yeah, dang.
Well, and yeah, the coach trip aside, for those watching who aren't familiar with the Red River Valley, a walk from the station downtown to Courts Plus is not a 5-minute trek. On foot, that's probably a good hour and a half at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like, the Greyhound, the bus system is not a particularly pleasant way to go. It would be probably a last resort way to travel for most people.
You started part-time at Courts Plus. Jerry was the head pro or head tennis pro there, and then eventually you took over. When did that happen?
Yeah, so for the first 9 years that I worked, from 2000 to 2009, I was just considered full-time, part-time. And then gradually during that time, I took over as the adult league tennis coordinator, started getting more responsibilities. And then I became full-time with benefits in 2009. And then it was probably, it must have been 2014 or 15 that I took over as the tennis director. At the time, now the position is called tennis manager, and I guess now it's tennis and pickleball manager. But so it was about that time, so 2014. But I remember the first summer, I worked outdoor at Elephant Park. I worked the Star Tennis. So I did, through the time I've been here, I've done everything. I've worked at every level. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah,
you're truly the epitome of working your way up from the bottom.
Right, definitely.
As I can speak from experience, teaching at Elephant Park with fellow Cobber tennis alum Benjamin Swanson. Mm-hmm. Those kids at Elephant Park, you get a few, I wouldn't say needle in a haystack. There's a lot more haystack than needle.
Right.
And it's been cool to see you progress, not only as a leader of tennis in Fargo-Moorhead, but in the USTA Northern section and nationally at times too. What do you think, since you've been in the States and in North Dakota, is there anything that you think, being from out of the nation and coming here, that has, I don't want to say made you different? That sounds like a resume question or a job application question. But is there a perspective that you bring to the table that you think is maybe unique to aspiring tennis professionals that are from the United States?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose just from my own experience, it's an experience of always playing tennis because you like playing tennis. I wasn't playing tennis just to get to college. I wasn't playing tennis just to make it on a team. I was always just playing tennis because I like playing tennis. And best thing for me is when people, years later they come back and they're still playing tennis, or they're still in love with the game, or they have kids and they want to come back and they want to play tennis just for the fact that they like playing tennis. That's probably the biggest thing for me. I had no idea how high school tennis worked over here, or college tennis or anything like that. So that's probably one perspective that was a little different just from my personal experience.
Well, and I'm glad that you say that, because I can recall, as you mentioned earlier, Ryan Myrie was a staple of the Fargo-Moorhead tennis community, the USTA Northern tennis community, for many years. And Ryan since then has moved to Florida, to seek other endeavors. But I can remember him posting a picture a few years back, or maybe perhaps you posted the picture, and it was a bunch of adults playing tennis in the Fargo-Moorhead community. And he commented something along the lines of, they're still playing tennis just as we always wanted. And at the end of the day, one of the things that makes our sport unique is that it is a lifelong game. It's something that no matter how good you are or how much you suck, there are always going to be opportunities to play tennis, which is really cool.
So being at Courts Plus, kind of piggybacking off David and what he just kind of said, like, you've had a lot of success, and the club has seen a lot of success, and I would say it's thriving right now. Being in the tennis community and seeing all the programs, having 3, full-time pros, having a great staff, and it seems like it's growing. What's your take on that? Like, do you think tennis in Fargo and the community is thriving, and do you think you're a big reason why it's thriving?
Yeah, I think tennis is really thriving. I mean, it helps a lot that the area itself is a growing area. So every time they open a high school, there's going to be another tennis team that comes along. But I do feel like we have a good, like a healthy staff that want to create people who fall in love with the game. And I feel like we have a lot of our programming that's not necessarily geared towards the high level players who want to play Division 1, Division 2. We have most of our programs are geared towards people who just want to make the high school team. They want to know how to play tennis. Maybe in their future is club tennis, this type of stuff. And I feel like that's kind of a culture that for myself personally, I've definitely wanted to help create that. So there are some clubs that really work on that maybe they have more programming geared towards high level 10 and unders or 12 and unders, and they travel with into tournaments. We're always kind of have more of a local base, and we want to try to do programs in our own town. So that's and that makes it affordable for those people as well. That's the other part of it. So it's kind of access to everyone.
Yeah.
The one thing I really like about the tennis community in Fargo is it's such a wide range of ages, and everyone's kind of connected through the game, because during tournaments, every age is playing. So you get to see, older people come and go, whether it's a 4 or 5 league, whether, it's an 8.0 mixed league, whatever it may be. So get to talk with people and make a lot of good connections. And that's one thing I really like about just the variety of programs that you're putting on. It brings a lot of people together.
Yeah, that is the lovely thing about like the weekend tournaments that we have, is that it's juniors and adults together. So that's why that's what makes like the Christmas tournament so special, is because everyone's there at the same time. So the juniors get a chance to see the adults play. I mean, that's a really cool thing. That's something, honestly, that in the UK growing up, we didn't have that. We had our tournaments in the summer. I remember we would get 6 weeks off for the summer, and I would do a tournament every week. But it would be, the first round would be on Monday. Next round would be Tuesday, then would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And if you got to the weekend, you were doing really well, because all of the tournaments were locally based. So you didn't really need to travel. You could drive, you could play your match, you could come back. And that's what's cool about this, this country. Obviously, it's just, such huge spaces that you have more travel, and the tournament has to be done over the weekend, which is really cool still.
Yeah. Olly, one thing that I want to bring up, to your point right now, but to your prior point, we really emphasize a sense of community in the Fargo-Moorhead area when it comes to tennis. A lot of that, there are all sorts of community, but community is bound in good people. As somebody who grew up in Fargo-Moorhead and played tennis competitively, you and other coaches always emphasize that tennis, obviously, you want to win, you want to compete your best, but there's an essence of sportsmanship there too. I can remember growing up, we hated playing cities kids, not because of talent necessarily, but for lack of a better term, they were oftentimes dicks. I live in the Twin Cities now, and I'm often among those people. What do you think is something that you're proud of that has instilled in these individuals? Obviously, you want to go compete and reach peak performance on the court, but you want to be a quality individual as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I'm coaching a group, I was just on the court just the other day, and I kind of got on someone because someone hit a good shot on the other side, and they didn't tell them good shot, and I that kind of bugged me, and I think the reason that kind of stuff bothers me is because these people might say, hey, who do you do lessons with? And I would be very proud if they're, if they say they do lessons with me and they're well behaved on the court. That's probably almost more important. Well, probably just as important as having success on the tennis court, because that is success on the tennis court, just like that is success in life as well. That you're being a good person.
Right. Well, I think it brings up a great point. Very few people go on and become Division I, semi-professional or professional tennis players.
Mm-hmm.
And for the majority of the population, you're not going to remember your wins and losses from your senior year of high school or your freshman year of college, whatever it may be. But you are going to remember who treated you well on the court and who was an absolute jerk, no matter how good they are, no matter what their UTR is. And that sticks. I'd love to get your take on, oftentimes people will say when they step on the court, and this is something that transcends tennis, it's in all sports, but some people will say, oh, it doesn't matter when you're on the court. You can be a different person on the court and off the court. But a lot of people would also argue that your true character is shown on the tennis court. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've always said. It's like, I always think that sport will show your true character. So when if you're being a jerk on the court and you can't control yourself, you come off the court and you're nice, I feel like the off the court part is the faking bit. And on the court, what you're doing, that's the real you. That's always been my thought. And not that people can't change, because, I've coached people who have been poorly behaved on the court. It doesn't mean that they're stuck like that forever. I mean, they can change, they can work on it. And then, I think so for me, I've always thought, the same thing, that it shows your true character.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Nick Kyrgios videos on YouTube. So my personal emotions have probably been regressing as of late. So I need to make sure I'm keeping myself in check. And
it's one thing. I think Nick puts on a show a little bit. I mean, if you're out there, because he's in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
Just as in some way we all are. If we're at a tournament, there's people watching, you want to put on a little bit of a show. I mean, it's fun. Yeah. So that can be different, because then they're kind of in character. You know, I think John McEnroe, I think he was once told that if he's playing an exhibition match, he has to say, you cannot be serious. Like, if he doesn't say that, then the crowd aren't going to be happy. So like you in that respect, you got to put on a show. But when you have like a junior player, they're genuinely angry, they're genuinely upset with themselves, with their opponent, with their parents, like they're yelling, they don't, they're just, that's just not keeping your emotions in check. You can put it on the court, like, sort of fake throw your racket, or have a tantrum, but it's not really a tantrum, so I think that's a little different. So I think I'm a big fan of Nick Kyrgios. I mean, I think he's nothing but good for the sport. If he's on, I want to watch him play. We were watching him in the US Open, and my daughter hadn't wanted to play tennis for a while, but she wanted to watch Nick Kyrgios, and then after watching Nick Kyrgios, she wanted to go out and play, and she didn't want to go out and throw a racket. She just wanted to go out and play tennis, because he just makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah. He's going to be the first episode, or he is rumored to be the first episode in Breakpoint, the new Netflix documentary or docuseries. And that's coming out in less than 10 days on December 13th. Or January 13th, I should say. So super excited for that.
Yeah, we're all going to watch that in our house. So we're pretty excited. Yeah.
Well, and I think that brings up a point, Ollie. Tennis is a sport that, the 70s and maybe the early 80s were considered the glory days of tennis. And let's just talk about the United States. On the women's side, there's been a prosperous amount of success. The Williams sisters are some great young stars. But on the men's side, Andy Roddick was the last American man to win a major in 2003. What is the difference right now? And you're somebody obviously who grew up across the pond. What is the difference between Europe, South America, Asia, and the United States? I've heard the phrase before that we're hitters here, we're not players. What's your take on that, and how can American tennis resurge to victory?
Well, you got to remember when I grew up, when I was a kid, the number one tennis player in England or the UK was Jeremy Bates on the men's side, and the best he ever did was reach the fourth round of Wimbledon, and that was pretty exciting when he reached the fourth round. I think he played Guy Forget twice, and I think he lost twice, but that was a top player growing up. So in England, I didn't really focus on the top English player. I just watched like the top players in the world at that time, and they were American players because it was Agassi and Sampras and those guys. Yeah, exactly. Andre in the background. So, and England kind of has the same problem as the States, honestly, or traditionally it did, because you had top junior players who could be the world number one, and then when they turned to the adult, they couldn't get to the next level. I think you can always look at Spain as an example of the fact that they have to build their game on the clay courts, the fact that they can't just be, two shots and the point's over. They got to work the point. They're used to being out there a lot longer. So, I mean, I do think that's a push in the States, to have more clay courts. And I think, on the women's side, that has helped a lot. But I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I know in the UK, the rest of the world, I think tennis is about the fourth most popular sport in the world, something like that. And in the States, it's not the fourth most popular sport. So obviously that doesn't help.
I wouldn't even call it top 10, to be honest.
Yeah.
In the States?
Maybe it's like 8 or 9. Because what? Like football, basketball, hockey, soccer, baseball.
Yeah.
You think soccer's bigger than tennis?
In the United States?
Yeah.
I would say
MLS?
Yes, because I think the same number of kids play soccer that play tennis at a youth level, like your parkboard tennis lessons or your Red River soccer, or what is now Tri-City soccer. The same number of kids play those two things, but I would say more stick with it when it comes to soccer because it's team sport. It's a way to make friends. Tennis is it still has the perception of, you're alone out there. It's the gentleman's sport. And I think that creates perceptions of it being not as fun.
Yeah. And tennis is growing. It's a growing sport. And we talked with Eric Porter about a week ago about the Mandan Tennis Center, and the new construction out there. And now Mandan has 10 indoor courts, or the Bismarck Mandan area has 10 indoor courts. Fargo only has 7. Double the population in Fargo. Do you ever think Fargo's going to get some indoor courts or some new indoor courts?
So, they're building a new sports center in Fargo. It's going to have big indoor turf. It's going to open in 2024. They are putting 6 indoor pickleball courts. And I spoke to some of the people on the Fargo Park board because I was really trying to push for them to get lined for tennis as well. Because I think multi-use courts are good. I mean, even if we don't use them for tennis very often, it would be nice to have as an overflow. So I think that's going to go. The fact that there's pickleball courts, being built there, that could take a little pressure off of Courts Plus, which would give some, people playing tennis here a little bit more room. But I think it's inevitable that you're going to have more tennis courts. And I think if we are going to have more tennis courts, I'd like to be involved in them. I mean, I'd like to have them under the umbrella of Courts Plus so we can do much of the same stuff. Otherwise, it's going to take, a very rich individual who's passionate for the game to build something new, because it's hard to have just a facility that's just tennis courts or just tennis and pickleball. I mean, you kind of need a membership base. You need basketball courts. You need a gym. It's gone are the days where you could just have a tennis because of the space and the amount it costs for heating and lighting. So, yeah, we definitely peak times. We need more tennis courts in this. Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I really have enjoyed over the last probably 5-6 years have been the tournaments put on, specifically in Fargo, and specifically the Red River tournament. because it has become a money tournament over the years, which has drawn a ton of traffic and really, really good players, some really competitive players, and super huge draws. Is there any insight or any changes coming with that tournament in this upcoming summer or future years?
We just each year we try to get bigger prize money. We kind of look at Sioux Falls as like the leader in that because they have the most prize money. And luckily we have great sponsors who want to compete with Sioux Falls in terms of prize money, because that's where it all started. I mean, we had Chris Holly and Miguel Danielson who wanted to bring basically like semi-professional top collegiate level players to Fargo. And they continue to support that. So that's basically where that all started, because they said, can we do it? And I was like, yeah, if we have the money, they'll come, basically.
Yeah. And is it pretty much immediate where you can just post it out there and you're going to get the players, or do you have to really market that event?
So I think, we already had a successful Red River, tournament, albeit not at the same like high level in the open singles, but we were always kind of the biggest tournament in this area, especially in North Dakota. And then, so I think then you just add the prize money, and then, I remember before we had a money tournament, Tony Larson came along and played in it. So it was already at the level where people came along and they knew there would be good players there. And I think just the fact that you put money out there, then they know there's going to be good players there. So it draws other good players. Because they're not, I mean, let's be realistic, they're not really doing it to make money. I mean, it's going to cover their costs, but they're doing it because they know there's going to be other good competition there, I think.
Right. One thing I want to get into too is, I know you're a big soccer fan or football fan, specifically a Fulham SC fan. That's your home club. You're a soccer coach too. Are you still coaching, Sophia?
Yeah, well, I'm not. I'm still listed as a coach this winter season. I always get a little bit busy, so I'm not doing as much in the winter. I'm kind of like an assistant coach, but I'm still on the coaching staff over there at Tri-City. Actually, I recently just joined the board, so now I'm a board member of Tri-City, kind of helping. I'm trying to actually, honestly, bring some of the things that we do at Courts Plus to Tri-City United, like some of the things areas we've been successful with, trying to help them with their program, kind of build a similar kind of culture for a different sport. But yeah, I'm still, that's kind of my passion of the weekends. I mean, I'll be looking at the schedule, see who's playing who, not just Fulham. I mean, obviously that's my favorite team to watch, but that's my Saturday and Sunday is just waking up early, camping out in front of the TV and just spending my whole day there, just watching soccer.
So I need to ask you then, on the topic of football, or as we call it in America, soccer, what's your take on the whole Gio Reyna, Greg Berhalter situation? Some parent drama, it sounds like.
I mean, it's that to me, like, I've seen a lot of tweets recently, people putting out like saying, yeah, this is what's wrong with American soccer. It's basically like you have an angry parent or a disgruntled parent that wants to get a coach in trouble because their kid isn't getting enough playing time. So I look at that and I think, yeah, that's youth soccer at the professional level, and it should not be the case. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and I think too, just that's an overarching problem in youth sports in America right now. My son's not getting enough playing time. I'm going to find something, not necessarily like, and obviously this is a bigger stage, and there's a situation there. But I can't count on two hands the number of times at the high school level, even that you've got a parent complaining to the AD about my kid's not getting enough playing time, blah, blah, this and that. And it seems like we're missing the point oftentimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was asked to coach JV soccer not too long ago, and people advised me against it based on what the parents were like of the certain school, and that's not a good thing. I mean, you should want to be encouraging coaches to coach, and coaches should feel comfortable coaching. And sure, just like in any profession, there are good coaches and there are bad coaches, but you got to let the AD take care of that. And in sports like tennis and soccer, it's not about the performance. I mean, no one really cares they do, because they're not as high profile sport, are they? I mean, no coach is going to get fired from a Division III tennis team for not winning. But so yeah, I think it's kind of ridiculous that the parents. I mean, and there are a lot of really good parents too, obviously.
On that topic, you've coached a lot of players that have gone on to play at the collegiate level. I've got 2 questions for you. Who is the best player that you've coached, and who is the biggest bust that you've coached?
So it's got to be top of my list is probably Davis Lawley. Plays in Nebraska, Omaha. He was actually just back over the Christmas period, and he kicked my butt. I think he let me get 3 games in the second set, but he was just being nice, I think. But yeah, he's at another level. He's a great player.
He's playing well.
Biggest bust. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. Like, honestly, no names come to mind. I was asked this question the other day about is there anyone, like, who is my least favorite person I've ever coached? And I don't have any memories of, like, not enjoying coaching someone.
Yeah.
So, what was that?
Just kidding. No.
I mean, I've had players, David. I have had players who I feel have not reached their potential. Maybe they've struggled on a big stage in front of a crowd. They get nervous. They're mental midgets. They've always been great fun.
Hey, I work for a sports psychology company now, so
Yeah.
I'm sure I could come back and kick your ass.
What I want to know is, like, how can someone be up on stage and pour pop over their heads and make a complete fool of themselves in front of a whole school? Be worried about how they look on a tennis court. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean,
how does that happen?
I mean, I remember losing to North Knutson in the state semis, or the conference semis. I was up 3-0 in the third set.
Mm-hmm.
It was I was a flawed man, a flawed young boy.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to crunch time, I was a soggy cornflake.
Yep, that's the famous line. Yeah.
But to that point, what's the most obviously, like, Davis Lawley, for example, is one of the Fargo, or I would just say northern section in general, one of the stronger players in the last decade, as far as potential that he's reached. And I'm sure it's great to see that, to see players go out that you've coached and win at a high level. But what is the most fulfilling thing for you as you watch players continue to play in college?
Well, again, it's not even just so much college. It's just watching players continue to play, because that's what it's all about. It's a lifetime sport. So the more I hear about them continuing to play, even when they're done, like a good example is like Aya Camel. So she's still very active in playing USGA leagues. When she's back, she jumps into the tournament when she's in town, and she just continues to play. Or like Karen Moe Johnson, as she is now. She's just getting back into USGA tennis, and that because you hate to see it if they get done with it. Or worst thing for me, and the thing probably my pet peeve, is when someone announces like that this is the end of their career when it's like high school. That's just crazy. And if I see that, normally I'll comment on it. I'm like, what do you mean? This shouldn't be the end of your career. This is just the beginning. Because if you look at the pros, I mean, what player has figured out everything by the time they're 18, or even by the time they're 22? I mean, it takes years and years to figure things out. And like, if you're going to be learning your whole life how to behave on the court, how to get there mentally and all these things, it takes a lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. Tennis is a very mentally taxing sport, so the longer you're around it, the better you're going to get at it.
Hey, I got to tell you a funny story about something that happened to me when I was at Tiffin Boys School. And it's to do with kind of I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing. So I kind of wanted to be a prefect. Now, when you go into the upper sixth, well, the lower sixth and upper sixth of your school, your high school, there are certain people who are made prefects, and there's a head boy, and there's a deputy head boy. Anyway, they had access to this room that you could play music and you could hang out. So I was like, I really want to get access to that room. And at the same time, I was captain of the tennis team. And the deputy head boy came up to me. He's like, "Oh, can I be on the tennis team?" And I was like, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you get me being a prefect, then I'll get you on the tennis team." And I was not prefect material in any way whatsoever. I mean, these are for like high level students, very studious. They work hard. I was not a hard worker. I definitely kind of skated in school. But sure enough, I got him on the tennis team, and he got me in the prefect's room, and I became a prefect for the next couple of years, which meant I could wear the gown, I could give kids essays. It was it was a lot of fun.
Who stuck out more, him on the tennis court or you being a prefect?
Well, the funny thing is, I wanted him on the team anyway. Good player. So when he asked me that, I was like, well, heck in a minute, maybe I can get something out of this. And he ended up being my doubles partner. I'm still friends with him on Facebook and Instagram. Cameron Naeem is his name. I remember he was also a diplomat, or his parents were diplomats. And remember he got me this spear one time. He came back from South Africa. Anyway, cool guy, very successful now. But we were a doubles team on the same team, and we won the Surrey County Schools, and that was the first time that we had won it. I think we won it in '97, and the last time it was won is like 1967. And then the guy that won 1967, he was also a member of the Phoenix Lawn Tennis Club, and I played with him on a men's team. Guy called Clive, and anyway, so it kind of went full circle.
It's what every boy dreams of winning as an adolescent. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, from what I'm hearing, you being a prefect, that gives you some academic status. I'm sure you pulled that out when you're talking to Angie, convincing her that you're not just you're not just a party animal. You do actually play a sport. And oh, by the way, at Tiffin Boys School, I was a member of academia.
Well, you would think, but I mean, all the cool kids in England play football, and they're not prefects, and they don't work very hard in school. That's that's more about being cool, and to be honest, like the cool kids played football, they didn't play tennis. So I was happy to keep that on the down low. I would probably have more success with the women over there if I was saying I'm a footballer.
Well, some things are very similar here in the United States than they are in England. Apparently, tennis is very cool, though.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Before we get into some questions from David, I want to get into a segment that I came up with before the show called Underrated or Overrated. So I want to come up with a mix of cultural things from England, but then also from the U.S. And I want your input on if they're overrated or underrated. So first one, the Piccadilly Circus, overrated or underrated?
I'd say it's overrated.
London Eye.
Underrated. That's really cool.
London Bridge.
London Bridge is overrated because it's not Tower Bridge. So London Bridge is just a flat one. It's pretty boring.
It's in a song, though.
It is in a song, yeah.
I looked it up before, and I'm like, that thing's lame. So yeah. I'm glad you said that. Big Ben.
Is there anything where it can just be level, like meets expectations?
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips.
North Dakota.
I'm gonna say the eastern part of North Dakota is underrated.
All right. Gustavus College.
Overrated.
Pickleball.
Overrated.
The Mandan Tennis Center.
It looks amazing. So I'd have to see it in person. So I'm excited to see it. I don't know that one.
Fish and chips.
All right. Did you know, Olly, that Isaac and I, our name is ingrained forever at the Mandan Tennis Center, and it's not at Courts Plus.
I see that. I was jealous of that. I wish I had put my $5 in.
It was a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
David, did you listen to the Eric interview?
Yes. Just parts of it.
your name wasn't on the wall. And Eric's like, yeah, wait, what?
Yeah, no, I made a Cobber tennis donation and I donated my own hard-earned money. So it better be.
But you had some questions, Yeah,
so Olly, obviously you're kind of a father-like figure in tennis, in Fargo Moorhead, and a lot of the local news stations were on this. And actually, I took it upon myself as somebody. I know that you're somebody that values children, and the next generation of tennis players. So I went into Miss Miller's class at Centennial Elementary and asked them if they had any questions for you for this interview. So I've got a few questions that I'd like answered, if that's all right.
Sure.
So this first one is from Ricky. Ricky is 12 years old. It's his third year of second grade. God bless Ricky. We hope you make it through. Mr. Summers, your LinkedIn profile says you're a tennis pro, but I was playing basketball with my friends at Courts Plus, and I saw you losing to a guy named Isaac. Is he also a pro? My brother says he works at a paint store.
He does. He does work in a paint store. Yes. He has a lot of time to work on his game.
Can you answer the question, please? I don't have all day.
Sure. What was the question? Like, is he a pro?
Yeah, because you were losing to him.
Okay. Well, I would say that on a day-to-day basis, I lose a lot of games. And I probably lost more games than anyone that's been on the show, because when you play sports, you lose a lot, and you got to get used to it.
Man, you make a good politician. All right. This next question is from Susie. She's 9 years old. Her favorite class is art.
Was she in the same class? Because she was 9 and he was 12.
Yeah, well, it was his third year of second grade.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, if you'd listened, you would have known that.
Gotcha.
Travis is a slow learner. Or not Travis.
No,
Ricky.
Okay.
Ricky's a slow learner, but that's okay.
Great question.
Susie says, Mr. Summers, my mom takes lessons from you and says you always talk about England soccer being the greatest in the world. If they're the greatest, why did the big handsome man from England miss the net in the World Cup when the ball is so small and the net is so big?
Well, firstly, Harry, if you think Harry Kane is handsome, probably want to get your eyes checked. He would not be considered a big handsome man. Secondly, I know it to be true that I would never say England's the best in the world. I support England and I want them to do well. But
Susie's mom says so. So I mean, I can take this up with administration at Courts Plus, but it sounds like there's somebody's lying.
Oh, maybe there's a disconnect there. Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. Final question is from Travis. Travis is 8. He's young for his grade.
Okay.
High meat and potatoes, high achieving North Dakota kid. Mr. Summers, why do British people call vacations holiday? And I should mention too, Travis is in Boy Scouts. My dad and Boy Scout leader say that it's bad to say happy holidays and to say Merry Christmas instead.
Yeah, well, so in England, we do say Merry Christmas because England is not as religious as it is over here. So when I celebrate Christmas, I don't think of the religious aspect of it. And I think a lot of people in England don't think of the religious aspect of Christmas as well. When they say Happy Christmas, they're thinking Santa, they're thinking a tree, they're thinking presents. So people tend not to take as much offense in England when you say Happy Christmas. So that's quite common. It's like Christmas time, Christmas holidays. They haven't had to call it, holidays, I guess.
So we like to break news on this show.
Yeah.
You mentioned Santa. Would you like to give us your take on if Santa is real or not? And we can showcase that to the world.
Well, it's all about what you choose to believe. Like if you have faith that he exists, then he exists. And if you don't want to believe, then he doesn't exist.
You're giving about as good of answers as the Speaker of the House candidates right now. So thank you.
What vote is he on now? Like number 15?
Oh my God. I think like 12. It's so bad.
When Brad Wimmer was running for mayor, he did ask me to write a letter to the forum. And I did, and it got published. So, that's my foray into politics right there.
There you go.
What of him? So
I like it.
I just said, and you know what I said about him? I said he has good character on the court, and so he's a good human being, and you should vote for him.
Hey, that's actually very good at and Olly, we've obviously talked politics, both American and British. I've worked in politics. You were a political science major. Some people may not know, but there's an aspect of politics when after you're in politics, no longer in politics, you got to walk a line. I think in society in general, and I feel like you're very good at walking that line.
Yeah, as a tennis pro, honestly, it's important to be neutral. If you get the sense that someone is on the same political side that you are, then you can engage in that conversation. And if you get a sense that they're not, then you probably will avoid it. But you kind of have to be neutral. That's kind of a nice thing about being a tennis pro at Courts Plus 2 is that you're not associated with any particular high school team. You're just neutral. You just want everyone to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it is in that sense, it can be political being a tennis pro in a small community.
Yeah. And David, is there anything else? I'm going to probably wrap it up. This is good for timing.
Yeah, well, I would just say, and I don't know, you could use this as like I'm figuring you want to include something about Olly, like accolades wise. But so Olly, what are your accolades? You're, obviously you've been tennis manager. Have you ever won Pro of the Year? You've won that, right?
I've never won Northern Section Pro of the Year.
Never mind.
I got like the Junior Team Tennis National Organizer of the Year. So that was I got the Northern Section Award for that, and then like the National Award for that. I guess for education, I'm like USPTA Elite Pro, PTR Professional.
You also got an invite to my high school graduation party, which was a very short list.
Oh, I did go. Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
Got to see
I would just say, what?
I found out that Jeffrey loves growing grass. And then
Jeffrey grows a lot of grass. It smells kind of funny. Sometimes he acts kind of funny after growing it, but he does like to grow a lot of grass.
Yeah.
But no, on a serious note, I would just say, and you can include this or not, but Olly has been to me a tennis coach, but also a friend and a mentor in a lot of ways. I was an awkward, very fat child. And I started working with Olly in second grade, and essentially he was somebody that I could confide in because I am an extrovert now. I was an introverted, insecure little kid, and Olly made me feel comfortable, not just as a kid, but as I grew into a young man and an adult. I had some of my best times with Olly, some of my worst. I can remember Olly concealing that I had a secret girlfriend in 8th grade. That was a fun time. But just how lucky is Fargo Moorhead to have an ambassador of the game of tennis like Oliver Summers. And I think that he, the community and just the United States Tennis Association owes him a lot of credit for what he's done for the sport.
Yeah. And
all right, I'll quit being nice.
Coming up to Fargo for me, meeting Olly and, watching the program and tennis in Fargo grow when I've lived here, it's been incredible to watch. And it's because you're leading the charge in all the programming and, the development of all this, youth tennis and then keeping people in the tennis game for a super long time. So thanks so much for joining us, talking for a while. And hopefully everything goes well with the club coming up in 2023. Thanks, Olly.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.